Welcome back to the EduHERO Podcast. We are here with our partner podcast today, and I am so pleased to have Mishawn Styles here with me, the majority owner of Styles HR. She serves as the Chief Human Resources Officer there. Mishawn, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me to come on board.
So you were telling me before the podcast that you are now planted in Cincinnati.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your background, Mishawn, and what brings you here and your industry experience in human resources, which is vast.
Okay. My husband and I met in law class at the University of North Florida. He was pursuing a degree in law, and I was just taking classes. And 8 months later, he asked me to marry him. And that was in Jacksonville, Florida. He's originally from Cincinnati, relocated here, began to work in the mental health space, was recruited from that industry to work in consumer goods, was recruited from that to work in human resources.
And you both run this company now together, and you both have had some really diverse background experiences. Tell us a little bit about the HR experience and why that you're so passionate about that.
Originally, you may remember Choice Care. Years ago, when I was working for Choice Care, it was acquired by Humana. And during that time, I had an HR manager, and she relocated to Louisville. And all of the accountabilities that she was responsible for became the responsibility of the supervisors of each department. And I decided at that time that I wanted to transition over to human resources. And after leaving Humana, I started in grad school and started taking classes at the time at the University of Cincinnati. And the program at the time was Labor and Employee Relations. And I thought that it would be a good pairing because I have an undergrad in psychology. And I thought the only difference is those who are suffering from mental illness know that they're ill, and those that are working in organizations don't know that they have a problem. And I thought that it would be a good pairing for me to go into the workspace and work with those individuals.
Well, I think it's an interesting example, right? When students are trying to determine what they want to do after high school, sometimes the degree area they pursue can lead to lots of different professions, as you know. And fast forward here, you're helping in the healthcare industry, you're working with companies like RetireMed, where the placement of somebody and their background, just like yours, becomes so varied, but really you're trying to match skills and experience for a need.
Absolutely. The majority of the roles, companies that I've worked with, they always have to hire. There's always a need for workforce stability. And the candidates that come to our organizations, they are applying for a position. They're looking at these central duties. However, what we're trying to do is identify the core competencies within those students and help those students to identify what is it that you really like to do and pair that with what you want to do long term in your career as you become an adult, and to recognize that what you began doing as a young teenager, college student, may not be where you end up, and that's okay. That's okay to just
that's okay is so important, what you just said. And you're watching people and studying people, and of course you've seen a vast array of talent over the years. When you start talking about core competencies or you start talking about core values, what are the tips or tricks that you like to give peers and colleagues who are on the other side of the process? They're not managing it the way that you are and leading it. They're trying to get the job. What are some of the core values that you try to communicate and share to them?
Some of the core values: integrity. What does that mean in real life? What are the actions behind integrity? What are you going to do behind closed doors when no one is watching? It's the action and the behavior. What are the actions in terms of your performance? When we're talking about core competencies, let's move away from the essential duties of a job, but let's look at the actions of what you do. What are your critical thinking skills? How are you going to go from point A to point B to produce a service or a product? Tell me what your steps are. That's a core competency. Let's talk about your ability to communicate with others. Are you following through? Are you closing the gap? Are you asking probing questions? It's okay to ask questions. As an adult learner, If you're not asking at least 70 questions a day, you're not asking enough.
70, okay, I need to
70.
remember that because I'm going to be asking you several more today, and I'm going to tally them as I go. You've done a lot of volunteerism. You've worked with a lot of young people.
Yes, I have.
And you know what the Braves in Indian Hill kind of stand for and what we're trying to do with career path development. When you are trying to help these young adults to figure out what they like and what they don't like, right? I think sometimes people who leave school experiences, they start to have a generalized view of students and who they are, this generation, and how they behave. What have you learned about our students and what their wants and needs are as they're seeking their careers?
Having the opportunity to meet with the Indian Hills schools, the students here, has been refreshing for me because they are fearless. And they want to do everything that my generation has not really materialized on in the generations before me. Not only are they pursuing academic excellence, but they're speaking with me and working with me to say how they're going to take that academic knowledge and either produce a service or provide a service or provide a product. They're looking at global impact versus, oh, I'm just going to graduate from high school. Yes, I'm going to attend college. No, the students here, they know and they have a desire, they have a thirst for taking that academic knowledge, that it's an understanding that they're going to graduate from college and then they're going to go out and have a global impact, not just in our community, but worldwide.
That's a fascinating viewpoint. I appreciate hearing that, and I think of our students as risk takers. So when you say fearless, that makes sense to me in general, right? And then specifically when you're working with a teenager, sometimes they need to learn that it's okay to take the risk, right? And sometimes they need to learn to find out what they don't like to do. How do you help them navigate that? I know you said you want people asking a lot of questions. What are some questions they should be asking themselves as they're exploring career fields?
Am I comfortable doing this? The self-awareness, am I comfortable? During one of our breakfasts here a couple of months ago, I was speaking with one of the students and I was paying attention to her body language, and I could tell that she was very uncomfortable. May it be an introvert or being in the company of a group of students, I could tell that she was uncomfortable. So what I said to her privately, off to the side, was, you have to say when you're uncomfortable. It's okay to let others know that. If you're not going to start cultivating that behavior now, it's going to show up later where others professionally or socially are going to take advantage of you because your silence is going to provide power for them. So that's one example.
And the power of the business at breakfast is that our students can interact one-on-one with you or in a small group and kind of hear a little bit about your background and your philosophy with these things and be free and open, hopefully, to interact and learn a little bit. I don't think anybody here, Mr. Damadeo, our business partners like you, are naive enough to think that students are going to land on one choice and stick with it the rest of their life. But I do think these types of activities are helping them to kind of narrow the field a little bit as they move forward. When it comes to experiencing things and becoming more mature in the workplace, what's your advice to students who really don't know who they want to be yet?
Just say it out loud. And to be honest with themselves, their parents, their educators, and to say, I don't know what I want to do, versus moving towards a path begrudgingly and not being happy with that decision that they've made.
What happens when they do that?
Wasted money and resources, parents, family, friends, benefactors, wasted time and energy, and resentment builds. And when I see that long term, even in adults, it's the resentment, and it shows up in the workplace in unexpected ways.
It's not just a major investment for that individual or the place where they work. There's a ripple effect for the people around them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and again, and things that can become disruptive in your life, right, which we don't want for anybody. But lots of people make poor choices about career paths.
Yes.
And then they also can pivot and they can learn to become more resilient over time. What are you seeing in the healthcare industry and in the placements that you've worked on with these specialized companies that are looking for a certain type of role to be filled? I mean, you've helped people with lots of jobs, right?
Yes.
So I know this is a really general question, but
Of course.
what is it that you're seeing in terms of the trends in this industry, particularly with the healthcare fields and the specialty roles that they're looking for? What's challenging? What's fun about that from your perspective as an HR leader?
What's fun about it for those students that don't know what they want to do, these industries are looking for those students that don't quite know, because that would give them an opportunity to cultivate that student in a starter position, and then they can transition to another role through career pathing to prepare them for that succession planning and long-term position within their company. The companies are then building an evergreen with those students that don't quite know, and even the ones that do, they're trying to create a foundational base because they know long-term that trying to go outside of the company to find these specialized skills is going to be difficult. But if we start with a base of students, high school students, college students, and have a career pathing plan for them, and we train them along the way, and we promote them from within, that's going to stabilize our organization, and it's going to create those opportunities for the student or for the employee.
What kinds of salary and benefits in these roles are we talking about for students who are entering these types of paths, right? Again, because I think sometimes people go, oh, I'm talking to an HR manager and they work in the healthcare field. They're hiring doctors and nurses. That's not what you're doing, right? You're doing lots of hiring for special roles. But what can a student expect or a young adult expect as they enter with some of these companies to make?
It varies. It really does. Within the insurance industry, I would say we tease about this in the HR space that the base salary may very well be $60,000 at one company. However, if you're in health insurance or health care at a research institution, that base salary may very well be $150,000. It really depends on the industry, the organization, if it's going to be private or public or research or a totally funded through a benefactor organization where you're paid based upon your performance and the research that you produce.
And if somebody wants to major in finance or accounting in college or university, they can find themselves working in an insurance industry that becomes very specialized over time, right?
Yes.
So we're not just talking about people who have an interest in health or wellness or medical. We're talking about people who want to do finance, business, accounting. There are a lot of different ways to end up serving these companies that you're helping serve all the time.
For sure, and those are some of the conversations that I have with your students. They sometimes think that, oh, I want to study accounting, I need to work with an accounting firm, and that's not totally true. Every organization that you pass along the expressway or in another state or another country has an accounting team or someone that's doing accounting or finance. And every organization has someone that's doing some form of human resources. There's someone that's doing some type of business development or community relations. So you're not pigeonholed into one type of organization. And the students here, they have the visibility through your partnerships to see, may it be a startup at a coffee company. May
Sure.
it be a startup, someone is producing tech for the government, that you can take that accounting degree and that accounting experience because it's a transferable skill.
So we hear a lot, and you see this probably better than anybody, that about 50% of the students who leave this region don't come back, and the other 50% stay. So I think sometimes people look at that as not a problem, but I think people who work in the world of HR and talent look at that as a significant challenge. So you said we're always hiring. What are the things that you would tell students not to do in an interview setting, because you're an expert at this, and I think some of our students are still learning how to navigate even that process. And as they grow into this young adulthood, they all have a view of what their resume should look like or what someone tells them they should do when it comes to dress. But just in terms of even communication, what are the things not to do when interviewing for a job?
Not to attend the interview and not have questions.
So prepare a couple important questions.
Prepare questions. Do not come to an interview and you have no vastly idea of what that company does or who their competitors are or what they provide to the region. Come prepared.
That's a good one. What else should they not do?
Be confrontational during an interview. There is a difference between being confident and being confrontational during the interview, where you're almost challenging the person that's interviewing you for the position that you are wanting. I see that a lot.
And when it comes to those people who you think are the most prepared, what are the couple of things that they do that are going to help them get that role?
They research the company's data analytics in terms of the company's performance. Some of the data is easily found, fortunately, because of the internet, and different forms and reports that you can find on the internet and through conversations with others. They do their research, they understand the numbers, they understand the service or the client. Who are we serving, or what product are we producing, and where is it going to be 5 or 10 years from now? Is it going to be relevant? If you're coming to an interview, if our students or young professionals are showing up and they're not prepared for the basics, that's almost an indicative behavior of how they're going to perform in the role.
I appreciate that. I think that's so important for people to think about. Do your homework, right? And
do your homework.
I think a great lesson for all people, not just students. So Mishawn, specific to Indian Hill, like, why work with us? Why our students? What does that do for you? What does it do for the company? Why are you here, helping out with Business at Breakfast, the Entrepreneur Center, thinking about career pathways? Why does it matter to you?
Why does it matter? It's three-pronged. Initially, I thought, what value am I going to bring to Indian Hills? What could I possibly do for that student population? This is a very high-performing school in this state and the country. And I didn't think initially, what value could I add? And then when I spoke with my president at Retire Med, Marissa, and I said, Marissa, should I do it? And she said, yes. And after meeting with the students and understanding the programs that you all offer here and how it ties in with what the business needs are within our industry, within our company at Retire Med, I knew that the students needed to hear my voice. The students needed to see and hear me, to know that there are people that don't look like them that has value to add for them. I knew that after meeting with the students as well as the employees here, the leaders here, that we had a shared thirst to see students thrive. I've worked with students at different colleges and universities, Bethune-Cookman University, Mount St. Joseph, the University of Cincinnati, Miami University, but this was the first high school outside of DePaul Cristo Rey, the first high school where I saw where the students were not only preparing for the global economy, for graduate school, for their PhD programs, they had a plan. And here at Indian Hills, it wasn't just, our students are going to graduate from high school and go to college. They are creating plans. They are building their future, and that inspired me. Sometimes when you work in the HR space or any industry and you've done it for so long, sometimes you can become numb to an impact. And these students here positively impacted me and inspired me to do more for them, to encourage them outside of high school.
I think it's great to hear that they had an impact on you, and we know that you added value for them. Sometimes I think when we ask people to consider a student for an internship from a high school, they forget what the power of 17 is, and I talk about that a lot. And then they meet the 17-year-old and they realize, oh, I want to help this person. I may want them to work for me, or I may want to mentor them, or I'm going to remember who they are in 5 years and watch their journey because they're going to be a great person to stay and work in this region, and we want to keep them here because of that talent. That has to happen. And I think it has to happen with adults and partners in communities so that we can help those young adults thrive, and then hopefully help these companies that you're serving thrive and your own business to thrive. So tell us, as we kind of finish up here today, you and your husband, you've got this thriving kind of business. You're a chief human resources officer. If somebody just wants to get into human resources, what are the things that they should be thinking about doing? Because that sometimes can seem like very specialized to some people.
Human resources has so many different prongs. You could specialize in payroll or talent acquisition or total rewards or a wellness program or performance management. There are so many prongs within human resources. I would encourage that individual to understand employment law. Understand employment law. And I tease and say, and I ask people often, do you know why we have employee handbooks? An employee handbook is a documented history of someone did something a long time ago that wasn't quite right, and we had to put it in an employee handbook to say, don't do that again. But I would encourage that person to study employment law, to be engaged as often as they can in volunteerism, because employees within an organization are different, and you want to have that diversity of thought and exposure, and understand integrity, morality, and ethics.
I love hearing that part. And of course, right, I think there's a real natural intersection between leadership and teaching leadership and people who work in human resources over time. Some people look at the job as management, and other people look at it as leadership. And then when they take it to the next step, like you have, and they build a business around helping people to succeed in a role and helping place them, boy, that's really special. What are you most proud of when you think of your company and your business? And I know you've accomplished a lot over the years, but if you had to point to a signature achievement in the last couple of years, what's something that you're proud of?
I'm most proud of my PUSH program. And that PUSH program predominantly started almost 17 years ago, working with young professionals who weren't quite sure what to do after losing a job or after graduating from college. And the push, I was pushing them forward. I'm going to push you forward. You stated that you wanted to do this, and you haven't moved forward with it. So that PUSH program would encourage and create a roadmap and accountabilities and deliverables that needed to be done, and it would push them through to achieve their goal. After working with probably about 25 young ladies last year here in the greater Cincinnati area, everyone accomplished their goal. Everyone received significant pay increases with transitioning from one job to the other, and they're still keeping in contact with me and sharing their skill set with those that come behind them. College students that I've worked with over the last 17 years, the last 10 years, are still reaching out to say, I remember what you said concerning this.
I can see the pride in your face and eyes as you're telling me, and I think that's so awesome. I also feel like I'm hearing you say these personalized education plans for these individuals has paid off for them, and it's also paying off for you in helping them. And that sounds a lot like what our teachers are trying to do with our students here at this level, this idea of personalization and really helping tailor some goal setting for an individual so they can end up being successful for them and find their passion and make it happen. And you've been doing that for years. You're doing it now still, and now you're doing it here on the Hill with our students. Mishawn, we really appreciate that you are taking the time and investing in our students and teaching them not only how to model the way as a professional, but also to think about a myriad of industries and roles that they could inhabit in the future. And I think that's so valuable for us. You're working really hard. When you and your husband aren't working, again, I know he planted you here in Cincinnati, but you've got to have a go-to snack or meal that you love in the region. So if you had to pick one, what is it you're doing for fun on Saturday night? Where are you going to eat?
Okay, on Saturday night, it's not really a restaurant. I thought about this just more intently. On one of my, I think it's on my Twitter account, you had me at Cupcakes and Chai. And Gigi Cupcakes in Kenwood, the original owner, before she sold it and passed it out, I would be in her place probably once a day eating cupcakes.
There you go.
And drinking chai.
Okay, so Gigi's Cupcakes place. I mean, that is like a little thing, right, that goes a long way, not just for you, but everybody else in the area needs to check it out.
Yes.
We appreciate you and your company, again, Styles HR, and what you're doing with companies like RetireMed and how you're helping our Braves. Business at Breakfast is going to be happening again here next week with our global partners coming in, and I think now we've grown to having over 50 to 60 partners showing up at these breakfasts. You may have heard this week over 132 students applied for the next round of experienceship internships. So we're going to need help from our partners out there like you. Mishawn, thanks for joining us on the EduHERO Podcast.
Kirk, thank you.